Welcome to the Story Makers Podcast. I'm Talina Adamo. Today, I'd like to share an article with you. What happens when the story changes your plan? Sometimes a story outgrows the plan we created for it and asks us to follow where it wants to go. Welcome to the Story Makers Podcast. I'm Talina Adamo. Take a seat with me here on the writer's bench. Sometimes all we need is a quiet place to slow down, think, and remember why we started creating in the first place. Today's conversation begins with a simple question. What happens when the story changes your plan? I started the Willow Sisters during a NaNoWriMo challenge. The goal was simply write 50,000 words in 1 month. I reached that goal and I was proud of myself, but the book wasn't finished, so I adjusted the finish line. I decided the completed novel would be around 75,000 words. At the time, I thought I was writing a fantasy novel. Then the story began changing. The fantasy expanded into science fantasy. Government experiments, time travel, hidden facilities, and Project AETHERCORE found their way into a story that had once been much smaller. The world became more complicated. The family history grew deeper. Characters who were supposed to remain in the background stepped forward with stories of their own. My 75,000-word fantasy novel was no longer one simple book. Eventually, I realized the book I had been calling Book 1 was actually Book 2. That was frustrating, but it also made sense. There was an earlier story that needed to be told first. Important things that happened before the beginning I originally imagined, and those events weren't merely background information. They were part of the story. So I changed the plan. I moved my original Book 1 forward and began writing a new Book 1. Problem solved, right? Well, not exactly. Because now I'm realizing that my new Book 1 may also be 2 books. Here I go again, dividing my original plans in half. Again. There is a particular kind of frustration that comes with watching your finish line move farther away. You think you know what you're building. You organize the scenes, estimate the word count, and imagine where the book will end. Then the story quietly informs you that it has other plans. Part of me wants to say, "Excuse me, but we already discussed this." Apparently the story was not listening, or maybe I wasn't. I'm discovering that the Willow Sisters doesn't reveal itself to me all at once. I can plot the major events, organize the timelines, and decide which characters belong in each book. But some parts of the story only appear when I begin writing them. That is the seat of my pants side of my process. I'm not completely pantsing the series. There is a plan. I know many of the major reveals, relationships, and destinations, but the road between those destinations keeps unfolding beneath my feet. Sometimes a character needs more space than I expected. Sometimes an event that looked like backstory becomes an entire storyline. Sometimes the emotional ending of Book 1 appears long before the ending I originally planned. And sometimes the story simply becomes too large to fit inside the container I chose for it. My first reaction is frustration because splitting a book can feel like starting over. Suddenly, the structure changes. Scenes have to move. Character arcs need new turning points. A climax that once belonged in the middle may need to become the ending. It can feel as though the work I've already done has created more work. But I'm beginning to see it differently. The story isn't falling apart. It's coming to life. A story growing beyond its original plan doesn't necessarily mean the plan failed. It may mean the plan did exactly what it was supposed to do. It gave the story somewhere to begin. My original plotting points helped me discover the larger world. My first version helped me find the real beginning. Every change brought me closer to understanding what this series actually wants to become. I could force everything back into the original 75,000-word container. I could rush through important moments, compress the family history, or reduce characters who are asking for room to grow. Technically, I could make the story obey the plan, but I'm not sure it would become the story I'm trying to tell. So yes, I'm frustrated. I thought I had already solved this problem. I thought I had already divided the story into the right books. I thought the finish line was finally holding still. But underneath that frustration is something else: excitement. The world is becoming richer. The characters are becoming more real. Connections I didn't see at the beginning are revealing themselves. The story is growing because I understand it better now than I did when I wrote those first 50,000 words. Maybe changing the plan isn't always a setback. Maybe it's evidence that we stayed with a story long enough to discover what it truly needed. That doesn't mean every manuscript should become a 10-book series. Sometimes a story needs trimming. Sometimes we really are avoiding the ending, but sometimes the story has simply outgrown the shape we originally gave it. When that happens, we have a choice. We can cling to the old plan because changing it feels inconvenient, or we can listen. Right now, I'm trying to listen, even if it means dividing another book in half, even if it means moving the finish line again, even if the Willow Sisters looks at another perfectly organized plotting layout and says, "That's adorable." Bench wisdom. Your plan is not a promise you made to the story. It is a starting point. Sometimes the story changes your plan because you took a wrong turn, but sometimes it changes because you finally found the road it was trying to show you. Remember, it's okay to give your story room to surprise you. Thanks for taking a seat with me on the writing bench. If you enjoyed today's conversation, I'd love for you to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes about writing, filmmaking, storytelling, and the creative journey. You can also follow the Storymakers on Substack, Spotify, and my Talina Adamo YouTube channel, where I share new articles, podcast episodes, creative insights, and resources for storytellers. I'm also working on an exciting new series called Plot Your Story with Me, so stay tuned. I'd love to have you join me on that journey. And if you'd like to support the work I'm creating, you can buy me a coffee as a simple thank you for free content like this, or become a paid subscriber for occasional behind-the-scenes content, early access, and other member extras as publication grows. Until next time, keep creating and keep telling your story.